Hello, everybody, and welcome to the weekly broadcast of Strategic Speaking for Results. I'm so excited to have my wonderful friend, Lesley Michaels here to talk about her brand new book, which arrived in my Kindle yesterday. Finally, we've been talking about it for weeks and weeks. And Lesley, I'm just so happy to have you here. Welcome. We're calling this Speakers Who Get Results because this is going to be a podcast shortly. So welcome to Speakers Who Get Results.
Oh, thank you so much, my friend. It is a pleasure always to be with you.
Well, thank you. It's really fun to have you here. I'm going to do just a little bit of your extensive bio, and then I know you've got something cool coming up. So Lesley Michaels is a keynote speaker and transformational coach who applies simple brain science to reset habitual behavior patterns and establish the mindset of unwavering self-trust. Lesley, I love that. I love that phrase. She also leads women to build strategic alliance networks to elevate their effectiveness and strengthen their voices as leaders in today's business arena, which is what she spoke about last time she was on the podcast, and I'll put the link into the comments and the show notes. More than ever before, we've learned from life in the time of COVID-19 that we need constant and never-ending innovation, the agility to pivot with ease, and evergreen resilience to create sustainable success. The cool thing about Lesley is that she helps individual, organization, and leadership to not just navigate, but to employ change as a strategy for creating new opportunities to achieve maximum performance in business and life. And what I also love about Lesley is that she's always important about being coaching and advocating for those with unacknowledged or undervalued voices. And you have something interesting about giraffes. Talk to us about giraffes.
I have something interesting about giraffes. You and I are giraffes. Did you know that you're a giraffe, Elizabeth?
Well, I have a lot more voice than a giraffe, but I used to have a great giraffe shirt. So I thought about giraffes a lot.
I have developed a new program called Be a Giraffe in a Field of Zebras. Now, where that came from is I'm a big lover of Africa. And I was looking at some images one day, and I noticed what I had never grokked before, the way zebras always graze around giraffes.
Really?
So I researched this. Yes. Well, I can't say always, but often graze around giraffes. So I did some research and I'm sure everyone can guess why. They can keep their heads down, they graze, they communicate with each other. They don't have to pay attention
to possible predators.
To possible threats until they hear that giraffe move. And they look and they see that the giraffe's neck is stretched up. Now they know that they are on alert. And it occurred to me that that is how our society operates. The majority have their heads down. They're grazing along. They are not paying attention. They are not implementing any self-responsibility. And they're looking to, it's often just 3 or 4 giraffes, 3 or 4 leaders.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me that that's what needs to shift. We need to have, we'll always have zebras, but we need more giraffes, and particularly among women. And I'll give you an example of why. And that is, I speak of this in the book. You'll read about this. I was speaking with a friend of mine one evening who is one of the top executive coaches in Manhattan. So this is a pretty high prestigious business arena.
Manhattan, this is New York City, right?
Yes. And she was bemoaning the fact that she has to struggle and wrestle with all of the women, virtually all. She said it's in the high 90 percentile. Women over 40 to ask for a salary equal to their value. And even when she tells them that the company in question is highly motivated to balance their male-female quotient in their executive suite, women still will not ask for their value. And so I want to help women to develop into giraffes.
That's great. I love that. And certainly not asking for your value it's a very challenging thing because we are so socialized not to. That one took me years. And still, I have to practice before I talk with a prospect. I will practice saying what my fee is because I'm still, there's a part of me that still goes, oh no, you can't ask for that much. So I totally get it. It's a great phrase.
And I'll tell you, Elizabeth, just because I'm out here saying we need to all be giraffes doesn't mean I'm the tallest giraffe in the savannah. I have to practice too. But the fact that I have to practice as well is not going to stop me from helping other women to practice, because I'm a little further down the road than some of them, a lot of them.
Well, and it's always easier to do it for somebody else.
Isn't it?
You get some help. There's so much I'm working on a couple of programs where asking women to tell their success stories. You got to do it with a partner because we're too close. So that's a challenge. Well, I wanted to ask you, we have you call yourself a modern day feminist.
Yes.
Just talk for a minute about what feminism is and what it isn't.
Thank you for that question. I love that question because there is such confusion about this. Very simply, a feminist is someone who believes in equality and equity for all people, regardless of race, regardless of sex, regardless of religion, all people. And feminism is taking action to promote that. That's all it is. Feminists and feminism have been given a very bad rap by certain sectors of the media. There have been rumors spread that we are man haters and that we want to overturn the world so that women are dominant and men are servants.
Well, anybody who's scared does that. That's
exactly what I was going to say. They are afraid that we're going to tip the patriarchy upside down. Actually, that's not what we want to do. We want a balance for everyone. And some of my greatest mentors have been men and self-proclaimed feminists. We're not man haters at all. We are absolutely not in support of the patriarchy. And we are here as feminists to call each other out when we notice one of us speaking in a way that represents internalized misogyny, because we're taught this from the time that we go to school. And boys who fight are boys being boys, and girls who fight are bad girls. It's not that the behavior was bad. They are fundamentally bad girls. And to be able to cooperate with each other and call each other, I was called out. I've been out doing this for all my life. And a friend of mine, I said something last week, and a friend said, well, that's pretty misogynistic. And she was right. And I was so grateful for that. So that's what feminism is. It's a space of coming to a point where we are in support of each other, to not repress ourselves, not repress each other. And then that can spread outward into all of society.
Yes, certainly. You always talk about lift one up. And that's something we talked about a lot of the last time we talked, but say it again, because we can't say it too often.
In women's struggle to achieve equity, professionally, socially, politically, throughout all areas of life, I see us as each other's greatest potential source of power when we lift one with us as we rise individually. Ilana Van Zant says it differently. She says, if you want to succeed, or excuse me, she says the best way to succeed is to help someone else get there first.
Okay. Without hiding your light under a bushel, as the old saying says. You help somebody else be successful, but don't forget that you were part of that you made it happen.
That is actually quite essential. Just because you lift someone up doesn't mean that you didn't have the intelligence, the wisdom to be able to serve that other person. Give yourself credit for all that wisdom. Give yourself credit for that intelligence, and give yourself credit for that empathy and that compassion.
Yeah, it's very easy for women to erase themselves from the picture by being polite, and we don't realize we're doing it unless we have a friend who will call us out.
Right.
This actually leads me to my next question, where this is particularly a talent for women, not exclusively. There are a lot of men who will lift others, but women tend to be trained to help. I know you talk in the book about how women's talents have been used against them.
Yes.
And called weaknesses.
Yes.
Which is one of the themes I talk about all the time with my clients. Please expand on that.
Women have been called weak, emotional. Women have, and this is scientifically studied and documented now, women have a significantly higher equity quotient. What is also true, and this one leads to the other, is that women are generally relational, where men are generally transactional. Neither is right, neither is wrong, neither is better,
actually.
Neither is worse.
Yes.
What is important is that women start being credited with their talents for empathy, credited with their talents for building relationships within any world, organizational, 501c3, business world, political world, because that is an important element. And because the status quo, as it were, did not understand the power of that, it was simply minimized, it was shelved, it was discouraged, and a lot of women started to pretend to be imitation men in order to get ahead, and became afraid of giving space to other women to come up into the arena. But fortunately, what we're seeing now is that those companies, particularly big companies, because they're easier to watch, those that have more than 2 females in their senior suite are showing up to 15% higher quarterly gains than other companies. So we are starting to establish our value. And also those companies that are being founded by women on a mere under $1 million, about $935,000 investment capital, compared to the 2.1 average investment capital that men make, the women with less than half are showing faster growth and higher gains.
And lasting longer. So are still in business 5 years later, where the others are maybe not.
Absolutely. So this is where we are getting to show that the empathy quotient and the relational quotient, while it may not be understood by many men, is an asset, and they need to buy in, and they need to employ that, and they need to benefit from these great talents that women have.
I think of this as having a balance. You mentioned that companies with at least 2 women in the C-suite. From the work that I do and my colleagues who work with getting women on boards, the magic number seems to be 3. Because, if you're the only woman, then you're that odd one. And actually, this is women or any minority.
Yes.
If you're that odd one, or if there are 2 of you, then it's, oh, well, it's those 2. If you have 3 people, that seems to be the critical mass.
Yes.
In any minority that you're talking about. Also, Western business was built on men's measurements. I mean, a lot of measurements were developed after World War II in Western business, so in the late 40s, and it was male dominated. So women in corporate who don't feel valued are mostly because they're being valued on a standard that works for men and not for women.
Precisely.
Yes. And the great Jen Kenny talks about you're losing 50% of your capacity if you are trying to measure people by using the wrong measurements. So I wanted to go a little further with this. So if you recognize that that's history, how can we as women emphasize, make visible the sort of feminine qualities, the qualities that weren't normally measured? How can we show the world that this is something to be valued?
For all time, the men have had their secret handshake in the old boys club, and it served them well. I do not bemoan them that. But now it's our time. Women need to come into greater alliance with one another. They need to stop being afraid of one another, which, by the way, is actually an outwardly projected fear of oneself. But we can get into that brain science and psychology another day.
Yeah.
Yes. But women need to start aligning and bringing the power of their talents together. And creating intentional alliance groups where they can vet their ideas, where they can brainstorm in a safe environment, where they can be uplifted. And as more and more women come together, we cannot fail to achieve a greater standard, because we are 50.53% of the population. That's right. But we have not been utilizing the power of our numbers. I am involved in 3 strategic alliance groups. I help women around the country develop effective, sustainable alliance groups for this purpose. And as women come together the way men have, we will become a force to be reckoned with.
Certainly the collaboration aspect, it's not exclusively female, but it's something that women are trained to do. You are socialized to do that. I want to touch briefly, you've got a chapter called Women's Rage and the book, and hold up the book, show us the book. You have it, hopefully you have it beside you.
If I can turn off my camera, I'll go across the room and get one. What was I thinking, not having a book on my desk?
All right. So I'm just going to talk for a little bit.
Okay, I'll be right back.
And we'll have you back with a picture, with the book beside you. This is the sort of thing, it only came out yesterday, so it's always a reminder to have that nearby. Talking about women's rage. So first of all, we're going to just pause for a minute and start over and say, Lesley, please show us the book. all the way,
It
okay,
is. Uh-oh, it's
Okay.
not, there we
there we
go.
go, okay. On
My
the
virtual
shoulders,
screen is playing games with it, but there you go.
there you go, okay. I'm gonna try this again and just say, Lesley, please show us the book On the Shoulders of Mighty Women.
Let's see if I can get my virtual screen to participate.
In front of you, it has to be in front of your face. Instead of your face, exactly. Now we see it.
Oh,
Okay.
good. Thanks for teaching me that trick, Elizabeth.
It's a good Zoom trick. Okay, so you can put it down. So if you're virtual, it has to actually be in front of your face. That's when I'm counting things, I always have to bring it in front of me.
Love
We
that
see
trick.
lots of your face. Going back to, on this wonderful book, the parts that I have read so far, I have not yet gotten to the chapter about women's rage, but that's next on my list. Can you talk a little bit about rage?
Yes, a little bit. There's a lot to say about this. What is most important in my mind is for women to start giving themselves permission and giving each other permission to become aware of their rage, to claim
Anger.
their rage. Women's anger, women's rage has been stolen from them through the same mechanism that wanted women to not be relational and not be empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts at a very young age because little girls, especially from our generation, little girls don't act that way. And so we learn at a very early age to swallow our emotions in order to be acceptable, in order to get that position. We learn to swallow,
nice.
To be nice. We have learned from women from your generation and my generation have learned to swallow their rage early on when there were inappropriatenesses at work.
Mm-hmm.
And we have spent the last couple of decades learning to say no is a complete sentence. And so I speak a lot to letting ourselves have permission for this, because think about this. We're a whole person. Now, first our empathy and our relational ability are taken, then our rage is taken. We are being dissected from the inside out. And we have to be loyal enough to ourselves and loyal enough to each other to claim all of our pieces back, all of our emotions, because when it all comes together, it creates the power base that we truly are, and to support other women in doing the same.
And you are still considered offensive if you lose your temper, or God forbid, cry. Yeah, a man can cry and get all sorts of applause. But for women, it's a hard thing to, it is often not accepted. How
and
can
it's particularly challenging if, like myself, I am more prone to cry if I'm angry than if I'm sad. And then that can become misread.
So what do you say? What do you do?
I tell women, learn to be comfortable with your anger by yourself first. Learn to become comfortable with your anger in safe environments. And then when you are in a public or professional environment and the anger comes up, you don't have to be limited to two choices: stuff it or let it run over everyone. There's actually a middle road that is created. You get to express your dissatisfaction. You get to speak to the fact that you are angry. You have the self-presence to be able to say, this makes me quite angry. And to be able to express. But first, everything is about becoming comfortable with it yourself.
Mhm. Okay. Uh, This leads me then to your concept of the comfort zone versus the stretch zone. Now, I'm someone who has to be pushed to stretch myself. And I surround myself with people who will push me, don't let me settle for the easy thing. Fundamentally, I'm a cat, so, I want to do the easy thing. But
Right.
I surround myself with people who are going to push me. Talk to us, please, about recognizing the comfort zone versus the stretch zone.
Easiest way to notice when you're discussing any topic or any area of your life,
Mhm.
the easiest way to notice whether it is a comfort zone or a habit zone that you will be best to stretch out of is it in fact comfortable?
Ah,
Is it comfortable? It's very simple math.
mhm.
If you are in the same place and you are repeatedly uncomfortable and you are not moving, you are in a habit zone.
Very interesting.
And it is time to stretch. And if you are someone who does have a difficult time stretching, get an accountability partner.
Yep.
Get someone you trust enough to let them be absolute in holding you accountable.
Mhm.
Don't get someone that you're going to avoid. Don't get someone who you can run over when they try to hold you accountable.
Right.
Be quite intentional in the accountability partner that you select.
Yes, I love that. I love that. So your accountability partner who helps you stretch. This is what we do in the masterminds I lead, and I'm sure this is what you do in your strategic alliances, is
Absolutely.
have other people around you who will challenge you and say, is that really true? Well, Lesley, we are near the end of our time, and I wanted to just be very sure. I asked you again about the book. How can we find the book? How can we get to the book? And let's talk some more about what do you do? This is a wonderful book. You've had Ariana Huffington put it in the newsletter. You've had such amazing reviews for the book. You're a bestseller on multiple bestseller lists.
Yes.
How do we find this book?
Well, currently it is at Amazon.com. It will not be in Barnes and Noble and Borders and all of those until the Christmas season. So you can go to Amazon.com and you can either search for On the Shoulders of Mighty Women, and you actually have to type out almost all the words because there are so many On the Shoulders books. Who knew?
Mhm.
Or you can search Lesley Michaels. Now, let me give you a little tip, listeners. My mother's English. So when you look for Lesley Michaels, it's Lesley, because if you spell it the regular American way, you're going to find this woman who's a big hit in writing erotica. That's not me.
Oh, so
Not
you
saying
have your
anything
double
about
life,
it, just saying it's not me.
your double life as a porn star?
Well, don't talk about my secret twin sister now, Elizabeth. I
Right.
told you couldn't be telling all your secrets.
Lesley.
Yes.
That's Michaels. All right. Lesley, thank you so much. I will post a link to lesliemichaels.com and the book in the comments and the show notes and everywhere I can. This is an amazing book. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you, my friend.
Thank
I know
you.
you've had so much work going into it that I really, really appreciate. Going back to the idea of giraffes and zebras, have you got a saying you can leave us with?
Be a giraffe in a field of zebras.
I love
Truly,
it.
be a giraffe in a field of zebras. And for those who want to go to my website, We're doing some reconstruction. Please be patient with us. But what is on the home page is the Be a Giraffe in a Field of Zebras self-test quiz. You can actually see where you are sitting. Is your head down in the grass? Are you able to lift up and see the vistas and have others follow you?
I love that. Lesley Michaels, thank you so much for having been a guest. This has been Speakers Who Get Results, and we're doing this live today on the weekly live broadcast of Strategic Speaking for Results. I'm Elizabeth Bachman, your host. If you enjoyed us, please spread the word. Like us on YouTube, tell your friends, give good reviews, give us comments. We want to get the word out as much as possible. This has been Elizabeth Bachman. I'll see you on the next one.